Every time I am on a radio hit right now, people are asking about sleeper teams, and you actually do radio in Birmingham. You do 50 million different things. So I assume you've been getting asked a lot about this. You've been talking a lot about it too. So draw me a few Sharpie circles. Who are some sleeper teams you got your eye on?
Let me go backwards real quick though, because I do a lot of what you do and talk to different people. What is the worst repeated question that you're getting right now? Like in your cycle of interviews that you do, you came on my show, I think last week or the week before. What's the worst kind of question that everybody's asking right now? Is that it? Is that why you're asking me that question? Because you hate the sleeper team question?
Yeah, I despise it. But it's not the worst. The worst right now is not in and of itself a bad question. It's just that people keep asking, what's the future of the ACC? Like there's any skill in knowing that whatsoever. I could ask the commissioner of the ACC, and he could not in good conscience tell me what the future of it is. I was talking to an ACC head coach this morning, and his words to me were, do you have any idea what's going to happen over here? Because they think they're going to be the last to know, and they may very well be right. Same thing on the West Coast. Pac-12 folks, they don't know. The coaches don't know. The ADs don't know in some cases. So I would say that's the most frequently asked question, and it also is not in my best interest or your best interest because we're like the rare people who like to talk about on-the-field matters. And when this stuff chokes the conversation this time of year, that's how you end up having Georgia win a national championship last year, and no one talks about them all spring. And then you fast forward a year, and they won another one, and still, unless you've made a conscious effort to, the national conversation shifts over to other stuff. And here's what happens. You have to deal with people in Athens come fall who claim that you disrespected them because you didn't talk about them all spring, and you're trying to tell them, no, that's not it at all. It's in my channel's best interest to talk about you. It's just other stuff was happening. There are 5 volcanoes going off in the sport right now, and they put their fingers in their ear and say, la, 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 can't hear you. So I guess those two, sleeper teams and the future of conference realignment.
Yeah, but first, I'm glad that you brought up people who don't mention Georgia in the spring, because on the Cube show, we actually did, and we pissed a lot of people off. So I just wanted to make it known there that when Kirby does go after folks after the next national title, that show was not one that skipped them.
Right.
We actually did reference them a few times. Sleeper teams. We'll start in the SEC, since that's where I spend most of my time. And this is always hard, too, because I think how you categorize a team as a sleeper depends on what most people think about them. But you're always going to have people who maybe weren't sleeping on said team. I think Kentucky's a sleeper team right now. If they can find a way, and they got a bunch of transfers coming in that could help to figure out the offensive line, and Liam Cohen by design can cover some of that up. Now, he can't go erase you and I playing both guard spots, but he can find a way to mask it to a certain extent. I don't think SEC fans have an idea how good of a quarterback Devin Leary is. Now, he's got to be upright. Availability has got to be his best ability, and that has not been his best ability through the course of his career. But if he's in the game, Josh, Kentucky has the best receiver room they've had in the history of Kentucky football right now. And there have been other great individual receivers, maybe 1 or 2. They have 3, maybe 4 right now that are as good or better than they've ever had. I think Ray Davis is exceptional. Vanderbilt transfer running back. You go get another transfer running back from NC State that's been a little bit dinged up that can maybe add a few things for you. And then defensively, Brad White just does an amazing job. And now Justin Rogers was a big loss. He's headed over to Auburn. But I still think with the way that they play, the physicality that they bring, that blueprint that Coach Stoops has, that foundation, it's not going away. They're not changing how they build houses. They're just sort of moving around the floor plan of the house. And I think they can be more explosive than they've been in a long time by still maintaining some of that physicality, playing some ground and pound, opening up play action, and Devin Leary can be great with those things. So that's one of the SEC that I don't think people are looking at saying, oh, wow, they could get to double-digit wins or maybe even past that. Texas A&M is another one, and it's really simple with A&M. They have one of the most talented offensive lines in the country. Does not mean they're one of the best, but one of the most talented offensive. Layden Robinson has great tape out there. Reuben Fatherly has great tape out there. Last year, they both had some not so great tape that was put out there. A lot of experience on that group, and the defensive line sort of the same way. Loaded with talent, can be disruptive, can be all over the place causing problems, but there were a lot of instances they weren't in the right places last year. Like they would get a win, but you're not supposed to be there, and the gap that you're supposed to be maintaining just gave up a 15-yard run. Like, it's great that you knocked that tackle on his ass. We actually needed you to stay in this gap to make sure that that 15-yard run didn't happen. every team that we start and stop with is going to begin there. They've got an experienced quarterback that Jimbo loves. They have a very talented wide receiver room. Am I a little concerned about tailback? Mildly. Am I a little concerned about second, third level of the defense? Yes, especially second level. But they've got big-time talent in places that you have to have it. Quarterback, receiver, both lines of scrimmage. That's a great starting point to be able to go win some football games. And I actually am not one of those guys that thinks Jimbo won't get out of the way. Like he's going to be causing problems. I think he brought Bobby in to let Bobby do it. Now, I will say this. One of the most enjoyable places for you and I to be this college football season would be a fly on the wall in some of those offensive meeting rooms because, good Lord, that's going to be fun. I mean, the arguments and debates they're going to have is going to be – and I will say this, too, about one thing that people aren't talking about with A&M. You know a guy who's at A&M right now who I think is going to be massive for that football team this year? Former offensive coordinator Jim Chaney.
Oh, he is out there. You know what? That reaction for me probably says it all because I cover this sport for a living and just acted mildly surprised to remember Chaney's out there. Yes, go ahead. Continue.
Listen, but that's every team's got analysts, portal guys. Like it's we can't keep up with all of it. I think he might inject a little bit of let's just kind of chill out, guys. Like let's go have a beer, or why don't we just run it this way? Like he will be the total opposite personality of every other guy in that offensive meeting room. I think he will help just from that perspective. Those are two kind of local, I guess, sleeper teams nationally. I honestly, it's probably not a sleeper for a lot of people out west. I feel like nobody's talking about Washington.
Yeah.
None. And you got a quarterback that should have been in New York. Now you do lose some pieces of your offensive line. You just got Dylan Johnson, a guy who's literally Ram Man from He-Man running the football, like will just put his head down and blast through you. They have a great receiver core with essentially everybody back, tight ends back. Majority of the front seven on defense, which was super disruptive, is back. They have a ton of leadership left over from that team last year, and Kalen DeBoer will tell you that's the reason they got to where they were last year was leadership. I understand that there's a boatload of elite quarterbacks in the Pac-12. And what does that equal? Upsets, at least in my mind it does. So they may drop a game or two that they're not supposed to, but I think they'll win a game or two they're not supposed to. And yes, we could probably have a similar discussion about Oregon, about USC. We could maybe Oregon State, depending on what happens with DJ. We don't really know just yet. But I think Washington's the team that if I had to right now, Utah lost some serious pieces of just kind of what they are at the core. Quarterback, fantastic. But you lose the tight ends they've lost. You lose Diabate on defense. I don't feel as comfortable replacing that as I do with what Washington lost and is replacing it with. They would be my leader in the Pac-12 and sort of my dark horse for the national championship. So therefore, yeah, I would qualify Washington as a sleeper team right now.
So I'm going to go starting where you finished. I'm going to work my way all the way back because right now, even if I'm talking to someone in the SEC or the Big Ten, when they ask about sleeper teams, I can't help it. The conversation just naturally gravitates out west because of the quarterback situation in the Pac-12. And the other thing is, anytime you talk Pac-12 football right now, everyone acts surprised, like, oh, I didn't know Washington was supposed to be that. I didn't know Oregon State was supposed to be that because they're used to talking about conference realignment. Like they haven't even allowed their mind to shift to what this actually is all about, which is on the field. So with Washington, people are like stunned when you even give them those numbers. I don't think half the country even knows Oregon State was a double-digit win team last year.
No.
But I'll tell you right now, so what used to be the North, now it's just take the best two teams, which I like as a format better. But in what used to be the North out there, Washington defensively is already a really good outfit. Utah has been that, but you were talking about some of the pieces they have to replace. What stood out to me about Oregon, whether it be recruiting or the portal, is number one, they got Bo Nix to come back, so they're set at quarterback. But then number two, they are stacking defensive linemen, man. They are really, really good and building depth, which is what you and I both know. Anytime you're watching high-level games and you're watching games featuring teams that you're talking about with that kind of playoff sense around them, when they roll their twos in there, I'm not saying there's not a drop-off, but there's not a big drop-off, and you don't have to sacrifice to roll your second and third team in there. Some of them go three deep, but easily most of the championship contenders are going two deep on the front. And I don't know if Oregon's going to be like cruising altitude there yet, but I think they'll be closer than any team out there this year. And in a conference that's going to be all about quarterbacks, like if you can get after the quarterback better than anyone else, that feels like it gives you a leg up out there. And I was talking to one of their staffers and they said, hey man, I know that you guys are talking recruiting a lot and you're talking portal a lot, but man, us getting Bo Nix to come back, because his dad wanted him to go in the NFL draft, us getting Bo Nix to come back, that's the biggest recruiting win we had. And they lost Kenny Dillingham to Arizona State, so they got a new offensive coordinator. Said that is huge, huge, huge. We love where we're at right now.
Now, I'm interested to see because, I mean, Kenny Dillingham obviously helped Bo Nix move past a lot of bad habits and a lot of mistakes that he was making on a consistent basis at Auburn. Imagine, though, if somehow, some way he takes even another step this year, because all the physical tools and attributes are there. I mean, the guy's got great mobility. He's one of the toughest quarterback competitors I've ever seen in watching college football, bottom line. Now, did it go too far at times and some of the sideline antics, things of that nature? Yeah, it did. But I mean, I do think a part of that was just his competitive nature. He'll try to run you over. Doesn't care if you're 320 or 220 or 120. Like he is as fiery of a guy at that position as you're going to get. But he can throw the ball. He throws a really nice deep ball. He's got plenty of arm strength. And he's played enough football now where he should have pretty good recognition that everything is going to take place. I'm interested defensively, with just all the pieces gone, how it's going to look. But if you kind of follow up your point, if you're wondering about the future of Oregon football or Dan Lanning, his potential being a star one day, which he probably already is and is going to be even more so. I remember the first time I sat down with him was his first year as Georgia DC. We get into our TV meetings and we go through, 30, 40 minutes, whatever it was. And he's just so dynamic, so energetic, so excited about all this guys. He's going through, whether it's X's and O's and he's diving deep really into like the nuts and bolts, or he's just talking about a guy's life off the field and how they were able to recruit him. He walked out and I looked at Tom and Jordan and I said, that dude's a rock star, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's freaking going places. So he obviously has a bright future. And you see not just through regular recruiting, but also the portal, he's doing damage right now. And it's not just the D-line. They've loaded up some guys on the offensive line through this portal cycle as well. So I agree. I think that the talent on the second and third level of the offensive and defensive line is going to be better. And we've seen Pac-12 teams kind of fall off the map because of that. USC shut practice down this spring. They stopped practicing. I'll be honest with you, Josh. I have never been around a program that stopped practice because guys were nicked up. Never in my life. And Lincoln said, you know what? We're going to take a little break. It's like a literal intermission. Like we don't have intermissions in movie anymore. Like he took a spring practice intermission because guys were dinged up. He's like, you go get your popcorn, go to the restroom, come back. We're going to push play again. And here we go. So, yes, it affects teams in that conference because the depth is just not where it is a lot of other places.
They talk at USC right now about how much better can the defense get this year. They were way down the list last year. I had one of our bold predictions the other day. One of their fans said, hey, we're going to go to the national title game because we're going to have a top 30 defense. And I may be wrong here. I listened to Lincoln Riley. I watched the way they operate out there. I don't think he's under any illusion that's ever going to happen. I really don't. I think he believes they got to be, if they can float in that opportunistic turnover team that's good in the red zone, that is otherwise like 45th or 50th in the country, he believes with the right quarterback, which he'll always have, they can thread the needle, they can win a title. But I want to go all the way back to Auburn right quick. So you were talking about A&M. And, yeah, I ditto pretty much everything you said about A&M.